And one of them called me out and said, hey, like, there's a calling to write music on your life, and the songs that you write are going to get sung around the world. They're like, I see like 3 tigers and 2 blue ducks and a turtle, and hopefully that means something to you. And you're like, that means nothing to me. Nothing. And I'm not opening a zoo anytime soon, so let's just wrap this up. Oh man, I wanted to marry a Californian girl so bad. Maybe God does call some people into that. But have you ever been in the church scenario where it's like, well, we don't listen to this because they believe X, Y, and Z, and then it's like that person's demonized, and it's like, well, that's probably not right either. So look, my advice would be get the basic gear that you need to be able to start making demos. It's so much better when you get an invitation from someone that's got something to show you. So if you're going to reach out for collaborations, you probably don't want to send like an entire song and be like, hey, I was just wondering if you want to be a feature or something. But if you were to say, hey, I've been working on this chorus, and then potentially doing some writing on a verse or 2, oh my gosh, that's been like so good.
Ben, what is up, man?
Hey, dude.
It's just fun to say what's up after, we've been setting cameras up. This is my first time ever doing a virtual podcast with anybody.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. So we've only done in-person podcasts.
Oh, I've done this once before, but this is the most elaborate version of it that I've done. Last time I did it was literally on my iPhone.
Yeah. Hey, we love this though. But you're all the way in Australia. It's very far. We have a 10-hour time difference.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to do it in person.
Yeah, a bit hard. Used to be easier when you lived in the States, but we'll get into that later. Just for all of our listeners to know, this is Ben Potter. Ben, I was looking you up on Spotify, 200,000 monthly listeners. Your most streamed song is Kind with 4 million streams, but you got multiple songs with millions of streams. You've done multiple albums, lots of singles, lots of co-writes. You also release music under multiple different aliases sometimes. So it's a lot of music, man.
Dude, it's like hundreds of songs. I think it's like at 200. And so I think sometimes you do a song that's just for you, and like it's a bit weird, and 4 people listen, me and mum, and then you do some songs that other people can get around too. Yeah.
Dude, that's so interesting. We're going to get into that because I just want to know how you keep up your creativity in general. But give us your story, how you got into songwriting, kind of your musical background, when you were like, I want to do this as my career. Give us the full picture.
Oh, dude. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I was a church kid forever. Grew up in the church, grew up in the Baptist church in Australia. And it's a little bit different to the Baptist church in America. It's sort of more like non-denominational sort of style vibe in Australia, I'd say, in my experience. Well, we were doing some worship nights and that sort of thing, and getting into this longer format of worship. And I sort of had this thought once. I was like, I think that we could be writing songs for our group of people, because we've got some amazing churches and some amazing writes that are coming out from Hillsong and Bethel and all these guys, City of Light, like all these songs like coming out. And then we sort of felt like what our church was going through was just a little bit different to maybe what the songs that were coming out were. And so anyway, this thought was like, hey, well, maybe we should get into writing some songs. And that's about as far as it went for a few months, and was really playing with the idea. And I remember one week I ended up bringing this thought to one of my pastors, Benny, and was like, hey, dude, I think we could be doing our own songs. And as we're having this conversation, I think it was Wednesday night, a couple of nights later, this team came out that was from Bethel Church, and it was like the ministry students doing mission trip, like practicing prophecies or practicing words of encouragement, or practicing preaching, or practicing evangelism. Anyway, and one of them called me out and said, hey, like there's a calling to write music on your life, and the songs that you write are going to get sung around the world, something like that. And I was like shocked, because that's the thought that I had that week, that maybe should start writing some songs. And her point wasn't so much that they'd get sung around the world, but more that they were God-breathed songs that will help lift people out from whatever place they're in into a more heavenly perspective. And so she gave me that word, and it was like lighting a fire, because it was like she spoke that out. It was a nice, encouraging moment, probably a couple of tears and a hug or something like that. And then next minute, it's like pressing play on recording music. And I ended up reaching out to someone whose music I really liked. His name is Ryan, and he got me in contact with his producer, Nick. And Nick and I got on really well. We would write together, produce together, and he produced my first record for me, which was called Reside.
Awesome. Was that weird when someone comes up and just tells you like kind of a big prophecy about your life? Was that like new language for you?
Yeah, I mean, I always like the idea of it, like especially in like, you know, when you're reading about the dudes they've lost their donkey, and so they're going to go visit the prophet, and the prophet tells them something completely different. Oh, by the way, your donkey's going to be fine, they're over here. And I always thought it was like this sort of weird space that is sort of for high level, I don't know, like government officials or something. Like, I don't know what our equivalent of the prophet would be in our society today. But to be honest with you, I found it such an encouraging thing in my life. And to be honest, the way that it's been most powerful for me, I would say, is when I've actually already got something that I've decided, or I feel like the Holy Spirit is leading a certain direction, and then an external party sort of encourages that and gives a confirmation to it. That's been the sweet spot for me with it. I can also say I've been in plenty of settings where they're like, I see like 3 tigers and 2 blue ducks and a turtle, and hopefully that means something to you. And you're like, that means nothing to me. Nothing. And I'm not opening a zoo anytime soon. So let's just wrap this up. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, hey, but I have found overall it to be a really, really helpful thing in my own life.
Yeah. And so then next you ended up actually going to Bethel.
Yeah.
Like their school.
I did. I ended up going to the Bethel School for about 3 years. I met my wife there. She's pretty cute.
You met your Australian wife in America.
In California.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I wanted to marry a Californian girl so bad. I had my heart set on like a change in life, and went through like a breakup, and then about 6 months later I was like, you know what? I think I should go travel in America for a bit. So I did that. Did this little this creative conference out at Bethel, and then loved it, and ended up basically coming back, sticking around for a few years. And in the process, I met my wife, Sarah, who was doing the first year of school with me. And what's crazy is my pastor for a really long time, I think like 14 years or something, Dean, he pastored my church, and then he sort of moved on eventually and started pastoring her church. And one day I get this message from Dean. This is before Bethel. I get this message from Dean. Anyway, he's saying, hey, there's this worship girl, Sarah. You should meet her. I think you'd like this girl. And I was not up for it at the time. I think I messaged him back, but does she really love Jesus?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know. I just started pastoring you, but I think you'd like it. Anyway, turns out we met about a year later or something like that, but in California. And I thought she was pretty cute. So I tried to chat her up a bit, and then she kind of friend zoned me pretty hard. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go fall in love with a Californian girl. And then that sort of like didn't work out. And then it's like, isn't it always the way, like you end up, I think, really deciding that the people or the person that is for you is the person that's willing to be with you in all the facets of your life, and will love you and choose you no matter what, basically. And for me, that was at the time, my best friend Sarah. We just ended up hitting it off as friends super well, and then we're there for each other in each other's moments, and we're there through college as well, and they're giving each other dating advice. And then like one day, it's like the shades went away for the both of us at the same time, and we were like, I think I love you. So yeah,
I tell people all the time, the friend zone is a great place to be, because if you can get out of the friend zone into like a relationship, you have such a good foundation.
I like that.
You're with your friend. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Me and my wife, we kind of friend zoned each other too, and we're just best. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And we're just best friends. So there's nothing better. Like when you're married, you know, there's so much of your life is spent being roommates, being friends. You know, most of your relationship is not like the romantic part. So it's like you have to have, I feel like, those other parts as like a backbone.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just nice. It's nice when it's your best friend.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree with that. I haven't heard it said before like you put it, but what a great foundation to start a love relationship in. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to hold on to hope though.
What happens if your best friend is like your dog though?
I would not recommend that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying marry your best friend.
Oh.
I'm just saying the person you marry, if they are your best friend, it's really good.
Yeah. And that's why in general it's good to be friends with more than just dogs.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good point. I should learn from that.
On a serious note, I actually knew a guy who told me him and his wife were not friends. Like they just were like very romantically into each other. But then they ended up getting married, and then they realized like we don't actually like really enjoy spending a lot of like friend time together. And so they had to like completely figure out like what does that mean for them. They ended up like super bonding over Harry Potter. It was really funny.
Hey, well that's something.
Yeah, because he had like Harry Potter like figurines all over his office. Like, what's the deal with this? Like, well, let me tell you, like, this is actually what brought me and my wife together after we got married.
After we got married.
Yeah. So super random. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so Bethel School. I'm sure you made lots of friends there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the best things about going to like a music college, more than like the piece of paper or anything. It's just like the connections, the friendships, that kind of stuff. What would be like, what's something you learned while you were there that you're just super grateful for?
Oh, you know what? My favorite thing that I learned. So before Bethel, I'll talk about it in the biggest thing that I learned falls probably under like a theological category.
Okay.
So apart, like there are lots of lessons along the way, so much, like lots of heart work, lots of just in general, like counseling and growing and trying to become more in tune with my inner self, my true self, like all the things that are going on within me, slowing down and getting close with them. But I would say from Bethel specifically, they do a really good job of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Do you know that saying? Is that an American thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So you'll be in school, right? And then you'll have so-and-so evangelist come and preach on we all need to just like throw our lives away to like stop for the person on the street and whatever it might be, like go and evangelize the world. And then next minute you'll have the person that comes in and says, there's nothing more important than slowing down and getting in the closet with Jesus and spending hours there. And then you'll get the next person that is like justice oriented, and then you get the next person. Anyway, so they do a really good job of allowing people to just be their full selves, even if you aligned all of them together, they'd probably all disagree on some maybe B or C level things about what's most important. They'd all agree on Jesus is the only way and things like that, but they probably wouldn't agree on a bunch of other little things. They do a great space of allowing people that think really differently to have a place to minister or share thought or whatever it might be. So that was something that I learned because before I had done that, I was pretty heavy in theological college. I was doing seminary in Australia, and one of the things that I feel like I picked up on, I don't think anyone in particular taught me it outright, was just to be very, very careful about what if people think differently, that can be bad. Like, what if they're that wolf in sheep's clothing?
Very dangerous.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so, yeah, look, that's probably true, and that's a real thing, and it's in scripture. But I would say that something that I learned from Bethel is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. To we've got lessons that we can learn from so many different people. How can we remain open and not be sort of like, what's the right word for it? Like kind of like hyper vigilant to evil, or like a little bit like, I don't know, like, what's the right word? You have to edit this down, but maybe
hyper vigilant makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe maybe God does call some people into that, but I think, have you ever been in the church scenario where it's like, well, we don't listen to this because they believe X, Y, and Z, and then it's like that person's demonized, and it's like, well, that's probably not right either. So,
yeah. No, I think nobody has perfect theology. No one has perfect thoughts or understanding about anything. Like, just when you think you know it all, you're going to learn more things. And like, even in my own life, there's things that I believed when I was younger that I believe differently now. And I know that in 10 years, I'm going to believe more things that are different as I'm learning and growing and seeing life. So it's always a good idea to be a little open-handed. I think people get a little scared because it's like, well, you can be open-handed with everything and just, make up all your beliefs. Like, no. But we need to at least be willing to hear things. And then sometimes, like, I know there's been a couple people that have written some really amazing books, but then they have some big moral failing in their life.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you detach maybe like some of their life choices from some of the wisdom that they were sharing? Like, can someone still have wisdom even if their life isn't perfect? Like, I want to believe, because my life's not perfect. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think really similarly. It's like, how do you, sometimes I think everything gets thrown out because of a bad choice, and some of the choices that they made before that and things they stood for were actually really, really good. Yeah.
So, wrapped up your time in Bethel. You just started cranking out music, Ben. Lots of music. So that's kind of what I want to talk about next. How our audience is songwriters.
Cool.
Of all kinds. And so how do you sustain creating music both financially, but also creatively? Because, you got to make some money. You have to keep this engine moving, but you also have to like keep yourself motivated. And I feel like sometimes those two things can be like opposed to each other.
Yeah.
So how do you do it?
Well, I'm no expert, but I was having a chat with Chris, one of the guys that distributes the label that I'm under, Wings. And one of the things he was saying to me recently is, hey, this thing it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a long game. And so I would so agree, because music can be quite expensive. I think particularly at first, where you're like starting out, you don't have anything, you don't know anything. That was me for sure. And as life goes on, and as you work with a producer, particularly if you can do it in the same city or whatever, I think things become clear and you naturally start to go, I think I can do that part on my own. Or if I bought that microphone and that interface, maybe I could do my vocals at home, and things like that save you lots of time, lots of money. So financially now, I have a job. That's probably the number one thing. The job has always, music has always been the side for me. And I really like it in that place because it allows, so I work another creative job. I work in the design space. And it's like a different muscle. So it's like we go all day long, go do that. But then when it comes down to music, it's a little bit funded from that space, or it was at first, and put a little bit of money into doing music. So just a little part over here, and move pretty slow. So it probably
the rest of your funding comes from your music.
Now it does, yeah. At first, it was definitely like self-funded, or I want to say that I was helped out a fair bit too, but I can't remember super clearly. It might have been from church and that sort of thing. In saying that, the first part was getting started. That had a lot of upfront costs. As time has gone on, now it's pretty much funded wholly from itself. So the royalty checks or the monthly income or whatever it might be is not enough to live from. But I kind of keep it separate and allow it to fund making more music and taking a little bit out of it as well to save or live from or whatever it might be. So that's how I do it now. And it really helps if you can work out how to bring some costs down by doing some things yourself. It actually, you have a couple of resources about that I saw online about microphones and interfaces and software and things like that, right? So that's stuff that you could
You're plugging our blog and other podcast episodes, future courses that we're going to start releasing one day.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm with you. I believe the same thing. You want to cut costs. And I think it's hard, and you've probably experienced this too. There's some things you can cut costs on, and there's some things you can't. And I try to tell people that all the time because you know this, you don't do everything. Like you're not out there trying to track your own drums and guitars and vocals and then mix it and then do your own graphic work and then do your own photography for your album artwork. It's like, okay, there's a couple things that I can do on my own, but then there's other things I'm going to leave to other people because them doing it, it's going to cost me money, but it's going to save me so much time and effort and energy so that I can keep doing the things that I'm really good at.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely leaning into where the gaps are. And I think that, there are some really obvious ways to save. And then there are some really obvious ways to not cut corners. And that's the other part is like, you don't want to get into the space, in my opinion, unless you're crazy talented, which, these people exist in the world where they actually can do their own production, their own writing, their own mix, master, and album art, and whatever it might be. Those people exist. I think I know a few of them from, meeting people over the years. But for people that I think like me that are not in the same category of expenditure of talent or whatever it might be, not compromising on the things that are going to be really obvious. Mix, master. Like a crappy mix or a I'll say it a different way, like an average mix or a bad mix or a DIY mix that sounds like a DIY mix, it's just going to take away from the quality. And so there are certain things that we just probably shouldn't cut corners on as well. And for me, mix and mastering, I made a point. I gave him a go at one point. I was like, I'm going to learn production.
Yeah.
And then I was like, now I'm going to learn mix. And I hated it. I hated doing mixing. It was too hard. So not for me.
Yeah. So real quickly, if you could list out what are the things you do and what are the things you outsource? And maybe I know sometimes there's even things that sometimes you do and sometimes you outsource. But if you could just like real quick break that down.
Okay. So things that I do.
You write.
Writing.
But sometimes you invite writers in.
100%. Yeah. So lots of collaborations. Leaning into the collaborations that feel more organic and not tiresome for personal projects. So a lot of writing. I feel very protective about writing too. Like I would never outsource writing for my personal music. I want everything that I sing or say to be what I mean at the time. So songwriting. Second to that would be production. I love production. It's so fun. It's like designing. It's like just like go crazy sort of thing and work out. You don't even know where you're going to land. But they're the two things that I will do. And so within production, you've got like instrumentation, playing the instruments, recording them. I'll pretty often outsource like drums, specific instruments that are really tricky or I just don't have them. Like, did a record recently, has some banjos in it. Hey, banjos aren't my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Clarinet. I'd love to give it a go, but I can't play the clarinet. So like paid a guy to play the clarinet. And so, yeah, you get those studio musicians, and now so much of that can be done online.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need to go rent out a studio, find a guy or a girl in the city that would like to come play their instrument for you. You can, message someone on Instagram, whatever it might be. So yeah, production and getting everything into its right place and making it sort of feel like the song has a direction and a theme and something that is quite beautiful about it. That's my sweet spot. And then the rest of it, the mix, the mastering, the album art, even though I work in the graphic space, I love to get someone else to come up with a completely different idea. I might have a concept in my brain that I will execute, and then I'll ask someone else to sort of have another go. And more often than not, I like their version more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so fascinating. I feel like most people starting out, if they did something creatively like photography or design, they would just assume that they're going to always do that part of the project. So I think it's really cool that you have even released something like that to invite other people in, other ideas, all that.
Yeah. And sometimes that becomes a collaboration too, like in the graphics department. But I love not doing the whole thing. It's so nice. Even like, I don't know, tell me about this. Like, do you like other people mastering your tracks occasionally so that you can have a different set of ears on what you've been listening to for, maybe tens of hours?
I do not, but I've only had a couple other people master stuff after I mix it. And I don't know, I feel like I don't like the way it sounds. Maybe that's just bias. Maybe like what they did was really good, but when I A/B it with what I did, I'm like, I think it like went in a worse direction.
That's been your experience so far.
Yeah. Now, I play a ton of instruments and I've written a lot of stuff, but I'm not a producer.
Sure.
I can produce. I could be a producer. I choose not to be a producer. That's why I've invited someone like, Kamo alongside me, because I'm like, everything he produces sounds amazing. Like, he does it better.
Amazing.
Yeah. So why not just like have the person who I really admire and think does it better than me do it, and then I'll do my part, I
love that.
So I feel like I had to be in the similar boat. Like a lot of us, when we start off, we try to do everything all at once. Like I want to be everything. I want to be the artist. I want to be the live performer. I want to be the studio musician. And then it becomes really nice when you learn, like, I'm going to do just like a couple of things really well. The things that give me life, the things that I'm good at, and I'm going to release the other stuff. But there's a cost with it. I think that scares people, is then they're like, well, if I can learn to do it myself, I'd save a lot of money. And I just think that's not the best thinking in the long run.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. I can see why they think it's really good thinking, because it's like, once I become a good mix engineer, I never have to pay for a mix again. It's like, yeah, but you'd have to spend 3 hours a day mixing for like 5 years to get to where you're happy,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that money it can be such a blockage for the creative process. And so if someone sat down with you, if you're about to do a song or a record and literally spelled out the entire costs, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But what happens is you get started, and these things, they take from weeks to months to years, and that money comes in different ways along the way. I believe that's been my experience, is that, it's rare that you have to foot it all up front at the beginning. And
we work with clients, like we do a lot of payment plans for people to try to make it manageable. Like, hey, just do monthly payments. And I think when you count the cost, it helps you know, like, okay, I could do, $100, $200, $300 a month. It might help curb your expectations. Maybe you're not going to do 15 songs this year when you actually put the costs together. You're like, maybe like 5 is like the right number for me. That's okay. It'd be better to do 5 projects you're really proud of than 15.
Exactly. Totally agree about that. Yeah, just do whatever you can do really well from the beginning, and I think you'll have a better shot at doing it long term. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So you out of everybody I know have co-written with a lot of people. I know you like co-writing people. I think it's also a little bit of like your strategy of like bringing in some different things for your listeners and expanding your listener base, which I just think is amazing, super smart, awesome. A lot of the songs that I've mixed for you are co-written with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, what is like your favorite co-write you've done? Like what's your favorite song you've written that you're just like, this was awesome?
Well, I'll talk to Kind. Kind was so much fun.
Okay.
Partially because...
Give some context for the listener, like who's that co-written with?
It's co-written with a few people. So that was co-written with my wife, Sarah, my friend Noah, and my friend Courtney. And so we were all in school together. And then there's sort of an element of that the worship team that I was on as well sort of had an input in there too. Well, this was fun because I stayed up really... when I did my first year of ministry college in California, I started going through... I think I slowed down enough by the default of doing something completely different and started processing internally some life stuff that had happened. So I had like a significant breakup in my life. My parents got divorced, all within about 6 months of this time period, right? So it was very sort of hot emotionally season. And I started slowing down and all these thoughts started catching up, and that was really overwhelming. And so I remember I would spend these late nights on the grand piano. And one day my buddy Will was like, hey, listen, I got to go out of town for a bit. Do you want a house hit? There's a baby grand piano in the house. Go for it. I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So late one night, just like having some time with the Lord, having some worship, and this chorus popped out. That's like your heart is kind, your heart always beats kindly, or something like that. And I got to the next day show that to Sarah, who was just my friend at the time. And she was like, that's so sweet. You should sing it like this, because she's a really great singer and she knows about technique and that sort of thing. So she taught me how to like move into like an airy head voice that was like really pretty. And then it wasn't long before took it to my friend Noah, my friend Courtney, and they really helped me flesh out verses and bridge and things like that. And it wasn't like one session where the three of us or four of us or five of us, if you count the worship team, all sat down and worked on it. It was like lots of little spurs of writing and trying different things and whatever it might be. So yeah, that's how that happened. And it probably changed shape maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times. Like if you go back to the original voice note, the chorus is similar, but the rest of it sort of took shape later. And so that was a sweet time, and I loved that because they were friends. Like that was like people in the same school, in the same lane, like all doing the same thing. It wasn't necessarily like 2 completely different worlds combining. We had the commonality of doing school together in this circumstance. And that was really special. And I feel like that's really similar to like if you're in like a worship community at church or whatever it might be. You're doing it with people that are life on life. Like there's something, if you have the relationships there, it's like imagine taking like a few of your closest people that can really see you, that you're comfortable with really seeing you, and then making art with them. Like it's kind of messy, it's kind of charged, it's kind of great. And so that's where that came from. That was one of my favorite co-writes, and I love the part as well in there about like just that it just for like the sentimental sort of sappy part of me loves that I got to show that to Sarah, and then 3 months later we were in love. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that was a good write. There's a lot of like I love writing with Gable. Gable's so creative. I love writing with Gable.
I love his music so much.
Dude, I miss him so much. I haven't chatted with him properly probably for a year or so, but whenever I'm working on like a project and I've got like loose ends, he's amazing. Like he'll just throw in something you probably wouldn't even think of. Had the opportunity to do some writing with Alyssa Figueroa at one point on Omnipotent Yet Intimate. That was awesome. That was over Zoom. So that was like just another, like I wrote a bit, sent it to her. She wrote a bit, sent it back on text message or like notes or something. That was awesome. And yeah, there's been other things along the way too, but yeah, there's some of the highlights.
Yeah, dude, that is awesome, man.
Yeah.
What makes a song great in your opinion?
Oh, dude, that's a nice question. I think in terms of the songs that I get attached to,
Mm-hmm.
I get attached to when lyric is not something you've heard before. Okay, so specifically, I'll talk to Christian genre. When the lyric is not something I feel like I've heard before.
Yeah.
And also, it feels really raw.
Mm.
I love that. That's my like favorite thing. Like mid-process sort of prayer, that sort of thing, or God, this is the way I'm seeing you right now. That sort of thing that feels relatable to that part of you or the season that you're in or whatever it might be. I love that. And that is like, oh my gosh, I listened to like a song recently that was by Pat Barrett and John Mark McMillan, and it talks about how we can become like little marketing billboards and things like that, but the best place to be is hidden in God. And like that, the way that they phrased it was just like not a way that I heard it before. Like who throws into a song like we're like little advertising billboards or marketing billboards?
Yeah.
And that like that I hadn't heard it before, and I was like stuck out so clearly. So that for me is what makes a great song, is because it's ever evolving. Like you know, I wonder who the first person to write like a particular phrase, and then you know that phrase gets really loved and cherished, and there comes a point where like you feel like that phrase has been in about 100 to 1,000 songs. You know, oh my gosh, it doesn't even mean anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. So I feel like part of the industry, part of the world that we live in, is finding ways that cut through all the noise into the heart and say like, have you heard it like this before? And that gets your attention and causes you to connect to God in a new way. I love that.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite lyricists?
Oh, dude, Gable, number one.
I was going to say Gable is really big for me too.
Yeah. Really, really, really big.
Yeah. It's just so raw and good. And like, I would never think to say that like that, but
yes,
but I agree with it.
Yeah. So top three for me, Gable, Jason Upton, and Rita Springer in the Christian world. They're my like, I just love what they have to say. I think it's unique. Mm-hmm. I don't think that, you know, there are lots of people saying the same thing. It feels really personal to them and their process. I love it. Give me more of them. Have you heard like Rita's latest stuff?
No, I haven't heard the latest stuff.
Dude, it's very good.
I'll check it out.
Go check it out. Amen.
Go ahead.
Is what it's called. Amen with a big capital
Amen.
A.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's called something else. But anyway, that song's a really good one.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of my favorites is John Bellion. I feel like his lyrics are so good. But I was gonna say Gable Price and Friends as well. They're very high up on my list. I don't know if it's just the lyrics or if the music as a whole, but I really do like the band Camino as well.
Yeah.
I feel like they just have a cool attitude about their lyrics, which is really fun. But yeah, there's lots of just great lyricists. Okay. Continuing to talk about you as a songwriter, sharing all of your secrets to everybody, Ben.
All my secrets?
All your secrets. What is one of your biggest challenges as a songwriter? Like you specifically?
Yeah.
You got so serious. Yeah. Let me tell you what's my challenge.
All right. I think there's a name for it. I don't know. I think there's a term for this. I think, to be honest with you, a lot. This isn't very good. That's a thought that goes through my mind a lot during the creative process. It's tricky, right? Because you're like, is this worth spending money on, spending energy, time, and resource into it? Is this just another song that will be carried because I've got a catalog of music that's moving? Like, am I going to just drop something that's really average into it and it will be carried by it by default? Or is it actually good? Like, is it actually something that is worthy of being poured into? That is such a challenge for me. And I'll go for months and not write, because maybe even more than that. For me, it's not as it's a difficult muscle for me to move. I even after doing it for ages, like every now and then I go up north to a town, or like a state is what's called Queensland in Australia, and I visit my friends Jesse and Dan, and they're part of a church called Kingdom Culture Worship. They do some amazing music. And that, like, Jessie is a writer, and she can, like, on the spot write. She's got ideas, let's go. And I'd say that she's got that muscle so, I was going to say lubricated, but I think that's a different word. She's got that muscle lubricated. I don't know. She's got that muscle, like, ready to go. Like, she's exercising it very regularly, and it makes me think that she's the sort of person that would probably very easily be able to pump out a song a day, even if you don't do anything with it. So my challenge is getting into that space. I find that is the most difficult part. Production and trying out different colors, and, you know, in the audio space, and like, okay, what if we go lo-fi? Like, what if we go orchestral? What if we go classical? What if we try and make it pop? Like, that for me is really, really such an easy space to wade into. But when it comes down to creating the art, and I think part of it is the critic saying, is this any good? I don't think so. And more often than not, not more often than not, but I tend to find with songs that actually come out, not the opposite of the critic will be like, no, I really believe in this, and I have this drive that kicks in. But also the second part is, I find it at this part of my journey, part of my process, really emotionally expensive to write. Like, for me to be honest and write, being honest, like truly, truly, truly honest and soft and sensitive and in tune and slow, is a really big challenge. Like, I'm like a high achiever, want to do 1,000 things, and not get really tender and curious with parts of me that are the writing parts, right? So that space can be daunting. And I think that's another reason for me as well, is that, it's just an emotionally expensive thing for me to do. It feels costly and like a treasure. And for those reasons, I feel quite slow in it. But yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of songwriters feel like they have a big, almost like emotional dump after they release a project. It's just like all these emotions come out, and you're just like, I'm just done. Like, I put everything into putting this out, and the second it comes out, you would think you reached the mountaintop and you should be like the most ecstatic and excited, but you're just like, I just want to take a break for a little bit.
I actually don't want to see anyone right now.
Yeah.
Like, people are ready to celebrate you. Oh my gosh, like, we did like a listening night. Remember when we worked on the I'm Healing record?
Yep.
That was honest for me. And we ended up having a listening night in Australia. And it was so hard for me. It was nice to be celebrated. It was exposing to be listened to. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, part of me wanted to go hide.
That's really funny. I was going to say, when you were saying you kind of struggle to like believe in a song, you're just not sure. Is there people you invite into the process that you're like, hey, tell me if this is worth pursuing or not? And they're like, yeah. Or, hey, that's not a really good song. You should move on. Do you have people like that?
I do.
Yeah. Do they tell you like not to do a song sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, they've worded it in a way that's like, hey, like keep working it, or like maybe not quite yet, or, you know, something like that. Definitely. But to be honest with you, those people are not like, it's mostly, if I want a really, really, really honest opinion, I'll show my wife. If I want to, I haven't done this much. If I want to even more like direct, like, at least Sarah knows how to sort of, you know, make it sort of have a bit of direction. I'll show my mother-in-law, and she'll tell me very, very quickly if it's any good. So I say Sarah, though. Sarah's so good at being like, this is actually this is a vibe, it's got legs, or I wouldn't with this one, or whatever it might be. And like the other day, I was working on, it wasn't writing, it was actually production. I was working on, we've got a cover out. It's like myself and a Sydney, Australian group called Rothbury. And we've got a cover of like Goodbye Yesterday. Da, 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 da. Yeah, we've got a cover of that. And I was working on the arrangement and the production. And because the production on it is like jazz.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. And I was showing Sarah, and I did not have that confidence in it at all. I was like, ugh, I can't tell if this is cool or if this is like too weird and alty and not the right direction. And this is well before the final product. It's like initial thoughts on paper. Like, does this have a spark on it? And Sarah was like, yeah. Like, you got to chase like this one. This one's great. But to be honest, I did not feel like that at all. I was like, this is kind of cool. I can get excited about it, but I just need that second opinion if this is worth my time. So yeah, she's definitely one of the most honest about it.
Yeah, that's so good, man. I feel like artists need to hear that not every song is gold. Not every song is worth pursuing. And you need people in your corner who are going to lovingly tell you, hey, that's not the one, or you really got to rework that one for a while before you should release it. And that's like when you know you have a good friend, someone who's, you don't want the other side, someone who's just negative about your music all the time too. You definitely want someone who's a trusted voice who you'll take the good and the bad from. So not a critic, but not I don't know what the word is for the opposite of a critic. Someone who loves everything. A yes man. The yes man. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Ben, what is next for you? Like, what is on your horizon?
Well, we've been trying to buy a house, and that has been a process, and we've just bought one. So that's exciting.
In Australia.
Yeah, in Australia. So different market to America. Like, it's really hard to, in my experience, it's hard to buy a house in Australia. They're very expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know they're expensive in America as well, but they're like really expensive in Australia.
I heard someone say, I don't know if this is true. This might be a rumor, but I was talking to a guy who plays pickleball who's Australian.
Oh, cool.
And he was saying that apparently there's like no property tax on land in Australia. And so people like buy a lot of land just to kind of hold their money. And so there's not a lot of like, there's not a lot of opportunity for like first time home buyers because a lot of money is tied up in all the current homes and land.
Yeah.
As like investments. I don't know.
I don't even know, but I know that there are lots of schemes to get out of paying taxes. Like we use one to get to, this is, oh my gosh, this is probably so boring, but basically we were eligible for a certain scheme that allowed us to pay a lot less tax as a first home buyer. And so there's a first home buyers scheme that we were able to use.
Yeah. Just for context, Ben, scheme is not a good word in America.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
when you say scheme, it's like illegal. It's
a great word.
It's like a legal feeling, not like a loophole or like a softer word. Scheme's not good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that's so funny. We actually call it a scheme, like even on the government websites.
That's crazy. Sure. If I said I was doing a scheme on taxes and the government found out, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Next minute, you're arrested for tax evasion. You're like, I was just talking on the podcast.
So house, what else?
House, which is great because that means like, hey, you can finally have a studio set up again. Because at the moment we're living with my wife's parents. They're so generous, and that's been to help us sort of be able to save, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So studio again, working on a project. Been working on it for a couple of years in the background. It's sort of an ambient, worshipful around the piano project. David, you've been working on most of the songs with me so far, and it's sleepy. It'll put you and your kids to bed, like
peaceful. It's peaceful.
Yeah. Which has been really cool. It's been fun working on that. So that's the next project on the horizons. I don't know beyond that. I kind of feel like maybe this year we'll probably end up doing maybe a cover song or a single or something like that. But for now, that's the focus. Oh, dude, I'm actually working with a guy called Dana on. He's from a group. His artist name is Hillside Recording.
Okay, yeah.
He's working on a project that we just got off a call yesterday where he was like so gracious. He's like, I'd like to invite you in. It's like a project with Eliza King. Eliza King has been like such a gift. She's like such an amazing writer. We write pretty often these days, and it's cool. Yeah. So the Ambient Project, no idea what it's called. For now, it's called the Ambient Project. And
I've like Ben Ambient Song is like what it says in my things.
Dude, thank you for working on that 10-minute.
It was great. Song. It's great, man.
Yeah. Well, that's on the horizon. But the last project of last year, that was so fun, and that was that jazz cover of Goodbye Yesterday. That was super fun. I've wanted to like produce jazz for a while, and so that was really fun.
Yeah, everyone I've showed that to is like, what is this? And they start like getting all excited about it, and like, yeah, this is Ben Potter. You should check him out.
Oh, that's sweet. Thanks, David.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, if you could give any just general advice to songwriters out there who maybe they're just starting out, they're trying to figure all this stuff out. It's expensive, it's exhausting, it's hard, it's time consuming, but they really want to do it. What's your advice?
Yeah, do it. Look, my advice would be get the basic gear that you need to be able to start making demos. If you're starting from nothing, get the basic gear to be able to make demos. Is the first piece. And work on like GarageBand or Logic. Apple has made them so easy. And I'm sure that there's a PC equivalent that is easy to use. Like it's so simple and it's so creative, and you can just mess around, drop loops in to sort of get ideas flowing. So that's the first thing is like, I wouldn't go, if you're not the sort of person that's like got a guitar or a piano and has written songs and they're ready to go and you're looking at writing, I would make sure that you're equipped to have an environment around you that's conducive to writing. And so for me, that's the DAW or, all that sort of thing. And then the second piece is, this is interesting. I feel like this is like my preference on this. So someone else might speak differently, but I love the idea of collaborating with people. I find that what's tricky is, and I've done this, right? Like I have like messaged someone on Instagram saying, hey, you're amazing. Like I want to write with you. But what I have found with recent sort of collaborations that have come my way is it's so much better when you get an invitation from someone that's got something to show you. So if you're going to reach out for collaborations, you probably don't want to send like an entire song and be like, hey, I was just wondering if you wanted to be a feature or something. But you probably don't also want to send through like, hey, do you want to write? Like maybe we can write about the love of God. Like that's such an open-ended question and feels overwhelming. But if you were to say, hey, I've been working on this chorus. What do you think of it? Like, would you be interested in having a listen and then potentially doing some writing on a verse or two? Oh my gosh, that's been like so good. I've met some cool people through that method of when they reached out, they had that sort of route to working together. And I would say like, yeah, if you're going to reach out for collaborations for writing or whatever it might be, come to the table with something that isn't finished, but also isn't empty. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I feel like I've never thought about that before like that, but I've seen you do that. And you've even like paid me to mix stuff before you send it as like a really high quality demo. Because you really want the other person to like believe in it. And I think that helps when you're like, hey, I was working on the song and I was thinking of you. Not, hey, I'm trying to use you to be on my song to make my song like great. But like, hey, actually like you would fit this song well. I think it's just so cool. So that's great advice, man. Dude,
no worries. Thanks for chatting.
Dude, Ben, this is awesome. I'm just grateful for our friendship over the years. I don't even know how long we've been working together. 4, 5 years, something like that. I don't even remember how we met. through.
Dude, I remember how we met.
How do we
because
meet?
we met because I reached out to Mark Barlow and was like, hey, I need some help with mix. And he was like, David Michon all the way.
Mark is the guy. Seriously.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
Now.
He is married now. It's fun watching him all his posts now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very sweet.
No, his music is so good, but I'm so grateful for all the people that he's thrown my name out to. So
yeah. So that was like the best. We met like literally like about 5 or 6 years ago. So not in person. We're yet to do the in-person hangout.
I know. So bummed about that.
The digital friendship is real.
I mean, I still wear your omnipotent but intimate shirt sometimes. Dude. Yeah, think about you.
Dude, I shrunk mine so hard I had to throw it out.
Oh, sad day.
Yeah.
Was the first song we ever did, was it Comforter? I feel like that's the first song we did, which is funny because we got Danny Schick to sing on it.
I think it was that song.
Yeah.
Dude, that song was awesome. That was produced by my friend Luke.
Yeah. It was a huge production.
Oh, yeah. He killed it. And then I think we gave it to Danny from Laity. And he sort of like did some production on it, did some drums on it with Benj. And then he ended up singing on it too, which was so fun. So I think that was our first song. And that was sort of pop, wasn't it?
It was way more indie and a lot more, I don't know if it's a rock, but like more that direction.
Yeah.
It was definitely fit more along with Lady, I feel like, than your catalog. But it was 100%. Super fun.
100%. It was definitely, I don't mind that. It's like your main catalog might be like stuff that's like really you. And then like you have these singles come out with collaborations and they're like a bit different. So yeah, it's definitely a bit different. I like it.
All right, Ben, we got to end it here because I know me and you can go on for forever. But dude, thank you so much. You're the best.
Likewise, dude. Love you lots. Talk to you soon.
Bye.